On a cold evening in March 2021, a 33-year-old woman left a friend's house in South London and began walking home. Her name was Sarah Everard. She was not taking a dangerous shortcut. She was not meeting a stranger. She was doing what thousands of people do every night across Britain. She was walking through familiar streets, heading back to her home in Brixton. But before she reached safety, Sarah was stopped by a man who carried the one symbol most people are taught to trust: police authority. He was not there to protect her. He was there to hunt. According to the official sentencing remarks at the Central Criminal Court, Wayne Couzens used his position as a serving Metropolitan Police officer to coerce Sarah into the car he had hired for that purpose. The judge said it was most likely he suggested she had broken COVID restrictions, a believable threat during the pandemic, when police had powers to enforce movement rules. Witness evidence later showed Sarah being handcuffed by the roadside. This is the story of the murder of Sarah Everard, a case that shocked Britain, exposed deep failures in policing, and forced the country to ask a terrible question. How could a serving police officer use his badge to kidnap, rape, and murder a woman walking home? Sarah Everard was 33 years old. She worked in marketing and lived in South London. In court, she was described as intelligent, resourceful, talented, and much loved. On Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021, she visited a friend near Clapham Common. Later that evening, she began walking home toward Brixton Hill. It was during the COVID pandemic, and movement restrictions were still part of daily life. The streets were quieter than usual, and people were used to being questioned about where they were going and why. At about 9 p.m., Sarah left her friend's address. She spoke to her boyfriend on the phone and arranged to meet him the next day. She was later seen on CCTV and doorbell camera footage as she walked along her route. Then, at around 9:30 p.m., on Pointers Road in Clapham, Wayne Couzens stopped her. Couzens was a serving Metropolitan Police constable. He had previously served in other police roles and, by 2021, was working in the Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command. He had participated in COVID patrols and knew how police enforcement during the pandemic worked. According to court records, he took some of his police kit with him to London, and he used his position as a police officer to make Sarah comply. The evidence later showed this was not a sudden, random loss of control. The judge said Couzens had spent at least a month traveling to London and preparing for the offenses. He had booked a hire car, bought a police standard handcuff key, bought self-adhesive carpet protector film, and bought hairbands on the night Sarah was abducted. The judge said Couzens covered extensive distances in London that night, hunting a lone young female to kidnap and rape. Sarah did not get into that car because she trusted a stranger. She got into that car because a serving police officer abused the power of his office. After he stopped Sarah, Couzens drove her out of London and toward Kent. The court later heard that CCTV, automatic number plate recognition, and phone cell site data helped investigators reconstruct the route. The official sentencing remarks said the evidence against him was essentially unanswerable, built from around 1,800 hours of CCTV footage and cell site evidence. The journey from South London to Kent was long. The court described what Sarah must have endured during the journey and the final hours of her life as bleak and agonizing as it is possible to imagine. The judge said she was ultimately raped and strangled to death. The precise location and exact timing of every act could not be fully known, but the court found she was likely murdered before 2:34 a.m. on March 4th, when Couzens was recorded buying soft drinks at a petrol station in Dover. After the murder, Couzens did not immediately confess. He tried to cover his tracks. According to the court, he took Sarah's phone, removed the SIM card, and later drove to Sandwich in Kent to throw the handset into a river. On March 5th, he bought petrol in a plastic container and burned Sarah's body, along with her possessions and clothing, in Hoadswood in Kent. Later, he moved her remains to a pond in the same woodland area, where they were eventually discovered. The cruelty did not end with the murder. The judge noted that within 3 days, Couzens took his family on a trip near the woods where Sarah's body had been hidden. He also acted outwardly normal, arranging everyday appointments and going through ordinary family life while trying to destroy evidence. Meanwhile, Sarah's family, boyfriend, and friends were desperate for answers. She had not arrived home. She had not met her boyfriend as planned. What began as fear became a major missing person investigation. Investigators worked through CCTV, vehicle movements, phone data, and witness statements. The case moved quickly. Couzens was arrested at his home in Deal, Kent, on March 9, 2021. Sky News later reported that about 40 minutes before his arrest, his phone was wiped of data. When questioned, he gave police a false story, claiming he had been threatened by an Eastern European gang. The court found this account was a complete fiction, and CCTV evidence rapidly showed he had lied. On March 10, 2021, human remains were found in woodland in Kent. Sarah's body was later identified through dental records, and the investigation moved from a missing person case to a murder case. Couzens was charged with kidnapping and murder. He first appeared in court in March 2021. In June 2021, he pleaded guilty to Sarah's kidnap and rape. In July 2021, he pleaded guilty to murder. Because of those guilty pleas, Sarah's family did not have to endure a full trial, but the sentencing hearing still revealed the full horror of what had happened. At the Old Bailey in September 2021, prosecutors set out how Couzens planned the crime, how he used a hire car, how he used his police authority, and how he tried to hide what he had done. The court heard about the preparation before the attack, the false arrest, the long drive, the murder, and the disposal of Sarah's body. Lord Justice Fulford said the case was exceptionally serious because Couzens had used his role as a police officer to kidnap, rape, and murder a lone victim. The judge explained that police officers have special powers of coercion and control, and that those powers only work because the public trusts police to act lawfully. Couzens had attacked that trust at its foundation. On September 30th, 2021, Wayne Couzens was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order. That means he will spend the rest of his life in prison, with no minimum term and no ordinary chance of release. The judge imposed no separate penalty for kidnap and rape because those offenses were taken into account in the whole life sentence for murder. Sarah's family welcomed the sentence, but no sentence could bring Sarah back. Sky News reported that the family said nothing could make things better, but knowing Couzens would be imprisoned forever brought some relief. They said Sarah lost her life needlessly and cruelly, and that Couzens had abused a position of trust to lure her to her death. The public reaction was immediate and powerful. Sarah's murder became a national moment of grief, anger, and fear. Women across Britain spoke openly about the precautions they take every day, holding keys between fingers, changing routes, texting friends when they get home, pretending to be on the phone, crossing roads to avoid men behind them. But this case was different in one devastating way. Sarah had not ignored safety advice. She had not taken a reckless risk. She was stopped by a man with police authority. That fact changed the national conversation. A vigil for Sarah on Clapham Common became another point of controversy after police moved in during COVID restrictions. The handling of the vigil deepened public anger and added to criticism of the Metropolitan Police. The case also forced official inquiries into policing culture, vetting, and missed warning signs. The Angiolini Inquiry was established to examine how Couzens was able to serve as a police officer. Part 1 of the inquiry was published in February 2024. According to the official GOV UK summary, the report examined Couzens' career and previous behavior, described missed red flags and opportunities, and made 16 recommendations aimed at preventing police officers from abusing the power of the office of constable. The Angiolini Inquiry website states that Part 1 looked at how an off-duty Metropolitan Police officer was able to abduct, rape, and murder Sarah Everard, and that its recommendations were designed to ensure everything possible is done to stop officers abusing police power. The Metropolitan Police later said Couzens' crimes raised legitimate questions and were part of a bigger and troubling picture. The force acknowledged that the case had shattered trust and said officers would have to work harder to regain public confidence. For investigators, this case remains deeply disturbing because of what the evidence showed. It was not only a murder, it was a planned abuse of authority. It was a crime made possible because the offender understood the power of a warrant card, the fear of breaking pandemic rules, and the instinct many law-abiding people have to obey a police officer. Sarah Everard's name should not be remembered only because of the man who killed her. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a partner, and a woman with her own life, future, and plans. The court called her wholly blameless, but that still feels too small for the loss. She was simply walking home. The murder of Sarah Everard left Britain with painful lessons. It showed the importance of investigating sexual misconduct and indecent exposure seriously. It showed why vetting and misconduct systems matter. It showed why public trust in policing can never be taken for granted. And it showed that violence against women is not only a private fear. It is a public safety issue. The final truth of this case is simple and unbearable. Sarah did everything an ordinary person should be able to do. She walked home through her own city. She obeyed what she believed was police authority. And because that authority was abused, she never came home. For Behind British Crimes, this case is not told for shock value. It is told because Sarah's life mattered, because the facts matter, and because justice must always include memory. If you found this documentary useful, please subscribe to Behind British Crimes for carefully researched true crime stories from across the UK. Leave a respectful comment below with your thoughts on the case. And share this video so more people understand what happened, why it mattered, and why Sarah Everard must never be forgotten.